Hi, welcome back. Or if you're just joining, my name is Maya, and welcome to my channel, Cranleyplace, where I'm focused on Hermès scarf style, knot tutorials, and more. We are barely through the fall-winter 2022 season, and already it's that time of the year when some of next season's silk and cashmere scarves are cropping up here and there on the Hermès websites. In this video, I'll share some of the spring-summer 2023 scarves I've found and talk about the designs and what we know about them so far. Let's get started. This design, at first glance, was not one I would have ever guessed was by Daiske Nomura. It looks much more traditionally Hermès equestrian than anything we've seen in his past designs for the house. According to the backstory, and pardon any mispronunciation, this was inspired by the Morea of Greek and Roman mythology, the three goddesses of fate who personify the inescapable destiny of humans. They assign to every person his or her fate or share in the scheme of things. Individually, they were named Clothos, or the spinner, who spun the thread of life, Lachesis, the apportioner of lots who dispensed or measured it, and Atropos, sometimes referred to as she who cannot be turned, who cut the thread, thus determining the individual's moment of death. The Fates are generally associated with cosmic cycles, as well as the goddesses of nature and fertility. Now, this design features 3 harnesses, one for each sister, which are adorned with insignias from the Émile Hermès collection. Now, I've seen this in at least 4 colorways so far, none with contrast hems. More will be on the way, I'm sure. This next design is from what I believe to be a newcomer to the house, and inspired by the Camille Saint-Saëns original score of the same name composed in 1886, a zoological fantasy, or Carnaval of Animals, consisting of 14 movements. In order, those are the introduction and royal march of the lion, hens and roosters, wild donkeys and swift animals, tortoises, the elephant, kangaroos, aquarium, characters with long ears, the cuckoo in the depths of the woods, aviary, pianists, fossils, the swan, and finale. If you look closely at the scarf, you'll see all the animals represented in its jungle-like tapestry. Apparently, Saint-Saëns wrote Le Carnaval des Animaux in 2 days while taking a break from composing his much more serious Third Symphony. It was meant to be a piece of fun, and in fact, Saint-Saëns decided not to publish it during his lifetime because he felt it would detract from his image as a serious composer. It was only performed in private chamber music settings during his lifetime and was always very well received by the eminent musicians and composers of his day. Often, it was performed with musicians wearing the masks of the animals they were representing. Notably, Saint-Saëns did relent to publishing just one movement, the swan, as a standalone piece during his lifetime. I've seen this design in at least 7 colorways, all with contrast hems. And while the artist may be still somewhat of an enigma at this point, I think he is certainly someone to keep an eye on. This next design comes to us from Jan Bajtlik and is inspired by Polish folklore, celebrating Pan I Pani, pardon any mispronunciation, meaning the bride and groom. Apparently, traditional garb from Krakow is one of the most well-known of regional Polish costumes, and it serves as the inspiration behind this design as well. Its origins can be traced back to the Renaissance era, but the modern versions started forming only around the beginning of the 18th century. It's worth noting that there are a lot of variations within the different villages around the old town center, allowing many individual approaches in detailing, which we can clearly see in the centerpiece of this design. On the groom, you can see a peaked 4-pointed cap, which traditionally would be red and decorated with peacock flowers, and on the bride's head, a tall flowered crown with ornamental laces. Then there is this richly decorated bodice, which traditionally could be embroidered and decorated with beads, natural corals, sequins, and tassels. I've seen this design now in at least 4 colorways. No doubt there will be more to come. This next design, I suspect, will be one of those hard-to-get ones, as this artist's scarves have historically been pretty difficult to acquire, at least on the US site. Called Chevaloscope, it's a study in equine art, specifically featuring 16 renditions of horse bust. There's one comprised entirely of makeup and makeup implements, an aquarium, bicycle parts, a neon outline with a 24 underneath, no doubt a nod to the flagship store in Paris, another that looks like it's made with leather working tools, one made of musical instruments, a hot air balloon, and more. With each one, the artist invites us to discover the details as you would a puzzle. As an aside, the earliest sculpture of a horse dates back to circa 30,000 to 29,000 BCE. Carved from mammoth ivory, the sculpture was discovered in the Vogelherd cave outside Baden-Württemberg, Germany. Now, I've seen this intriguing scarf design in at least 7 colorways on Hermès websites outside the US. If history is any indication, this is likely to be all the colorways that will be made available. It is probably no surprise that this next design comes from Jonathan Burton with his signature whimsical style. At its center is a superheroine who needs her magical tea for her helmet to grow wings. Inserting a token into this fantastical contraption starts the whole process. There's a horse on a treadmill, which triggers a chain reaction of pulleys, gears, bouncing balls, and more in a very chitty chitty bang bang, caractacus pot sort of way. You may have also spotted the onomatopoeia that he's incorporated into the machine. And if you don't know what that is, here's your word for the day. Onomatopoeia is basically the naming of a thing or action by a vocal imitation of the sound associated with it. So in the scarf, things like boing, boom, pow, zing, and whiz. I especially love the grumpy cat rudely awakened by an alarm clock at step 17. And it looks like his tail is an indispensable part of the lever for step 18. In step 21, there's a tiny fire-breathing dragon that lights a candle for the boiler. And step 24, the 4-armed astronaut on a horse with a crank-operated scissor lift saddle catches the tea in a polka-dotted teapot. Incidentally, this is the same horse that started the treadmill in step 2. Such is the imaginative world that Burton has created for us and allows us to glimpse in this fanciful design. So far, I've seen this in at least 4 very summery colorways, all with contrast hems. We'll see what other options come available in the meantime. So far, I haven't seen that this design has been attributed to any artist on the Hermès sites. It's a new addition to the double-faced silk twill options featuring 6 ceremonial epaulettes, perhaps inspired by examples found in the Émile Hermès collection. Epaulettes bear some resemblance to the shoulder tabouches, and I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but these are strip-like defenses for the upper parts of the limbs attached to armor of ancient Roman military costumes. The word epaulette itself comes from épaule, an old French word for shoulder. However, their direct origin lies in the bunches of ribbons worn on the shoulders of military coats at the end of the 17th century, which were partially decorative and partially intended to prevent shoulder belts from slipping. These ribbons were tied into a knot which left the fringed end free. This established the basic design of the epaulette as it evolved through the 18th and 19th centuries. Another story has them beginning as pieces of armor to protect the shoulders. From the 18th century on, epaulettes were used in the French and other armies to indicate rank. The rank of an officer could be determined by whether an epaulette was worn on the left shoulder, the right shoulder, or on both. Later, a counter epaulette with no fringe was worn on the opposite shoulder of those who only wore a single epaulette. Epaulettes were also expensive, being made of silver or gold for officers, sometimes solid metal, and other times plated. They were also made out of cloth of various colors or cheaper metal for enlisted men of various arms. And by the early 18th century, epaulettes became the distinguishing feature of an officer, leading to officers of military units without epaulettes to petition their government for the right to wear them to ensure that they would be recognized as officers. So far, I've only seen this in 2 colorways, both quite delicate, not surprising for summer, so we'll see what else pops up as the season unfolds. So there you have it, a bit about the spring-summer 2023 scarves from Hermès that are starting to appear. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and let me know what you think in the comments. In future episodes, I'll share other scarf reviews, not tutorials, and more, so be sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks again for joining me today. Until next time!